welcome to the Romance Here, There, and Everywhere panel for the 20th Anniversary Las Vegas Book Festival, virtual festival. We have an in-person festival as well on October 23rd, but you'll be seeing this airing the week before. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I'm going to introduce the authors. So we have Xio Axelrod, Goree-Bell, Robin Covington, Katee Robert, and Denise Williams. And I absolutely love these authors, so hopefully I won't fangirl too much. I've known some of them for several years, but I still fangirl them. Katee, yeah.
We all fangirl Katee.
That's true.
I fangirl you right back.
I met Katee the day after she got married. I met her and her husband the day after they got married.
That means it's been 8 years that I've known you.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to have everyone, before we ask any questions, introduce themselves, their book, and something about their book. So we'll start with you, Xio.
Oh, of course. Okay. Well, I'm Xio Axelrod. I'm from Philadelphia, and my latest release is The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes. I'll call it Squishy. It's a rock and roll romance, family, all-female rock band, women kick ass, all that stuff. So second chance romance. Yeah. All the tropes. I threw them in a blender and came out with this book.
Okay, Kenya, you're on my screen next. So,
hi, I'm Kenya Goree-Bell. I write historical under Karis Bell, and this book is the first book in the Mogul series where I write about smart, sexy, cool.
Whoops, we lost you for a second.
Oops.
Kenya, are you there?
Come back.
Okay, Robin, we'll move on to you, and then if we get Kenya back, then we'll pop her back on. Hopefully she'll
All right. So I'm Robin Covington, and I'm here right outside the DC area. So any of my local peeps, hi, how you doing? I write contemporary male-female and queer romance, and my latest is Seducing His Secret Wife. It's the second in the Red Hawk reunion. Which is, I love this series so much. It's about, it features Native siblings. I am biracial Native American descent. And so this is like kind of the series of my heart. Super excited about it.
Yay, it's great. I loved it. I love Xio's.
It's really good.
Okay, I think we lost Kenya again, but hopefully she'll be back in a minute. All right, Katee.
I am Katee Robert. I write like dark, erotic romance. My most recent-ish release is Neon Gods, which is a Hades and Persephone retelling, contemporary retelling, no magic-ish. Like fake dating with real sex is the trope in this book. So, yeah. So it's
super hot. Super hot.
I try.
So good.
Katie's always hot, but then she got super, super, super hot.
Yeah. There was extra
it's definitely the pages are on fire in Hades, with Hades and fire.
Yeah. You know, the series only seems to be getting hotter as it goes on. So buckle up, I guess.
No less from you, Katee Robert. No less.
No.
All right, Denise, who I love your books too. I just read an arc of the second one.
Hi, I'm Denise Williams, she, her pronouns. I am definitely, I think, the new kid on the block. My debut, How to Felt Flirting, came out last December, and I don't have an arc of it, so I'll just hold up my phone. But my next one is The Fastest Way to Fall, and it comes out in 2 months from Berkeley. And I am in Iowa, and in my day job, I work at a university, and there's like no kissing involved in my work. So I really love to come home and write romance novels, and I'm excited to talk to you all and try not to fangirl as well.
And we lost Kenya, but hopefully Kenya will be back. And I think Tessa Bailey's trying to pop on now too, so we'll see her. But until we get them, we'll just start going. So I kind of wanted to bring you all together because, well, I love your books, first of all, but also just talk about writing. So what made you want to start writing romance books? Were you a big romance reader and then started, or had you just got an idea in your head and decided I can't help write? So what made you start wanting to write romance books?
I know there was never enough romance for my liking in stories, TV shows, movies that I liked. So, I think a lot of us told the story of like, we didn't see ourselves on the screen. So that was, kind of like the first starting point was I would change everybody into somebody who looked like me, right? So Farrah Fawcett on Charlie's Angels looked a lot like me in my head. But there, as much as I love them running around and solving crime, there wasn't enough romance on Charlie's Angels. So hi Kenya, yay!
I can still hear you guys too. I'm sorry.
So, but I just started writing down stories and kind of making up in my head like an AU type of environment. And then we were talking about, before we all started recording, we were talking about fan fiction and stuff. And so once I discovered fan fiction forums, it was like other people were doing the same thing I was doing, it was like, wow, I love these people, right? So that's how I got started. And then, I realized a couple of fan fictions in that I was writing full-length books. And so looked at my husband and he said, you should do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, mine was similar. I was writing Buffy fanfic. And I didn't know that fan fiction was a thing. I saw an episode and it pissed me off. And so I rewrote the episode, but I didn't know that other people were out there doing that until I went online. I was like, oh my gosh, I found my people. But I still didn't think, oh, I need to write a book. Like, it wasn't until I accidentally wrote a book on my Tumblr blog that someone said, this is kind of a romance or romantic fiction. You should do something with this. And I had never read romance. I didn't really know much about the genre. And I was like, I don't know. But hello, here we are 8 years later. So it was kind of an accident for me, I guess, stumbling into romance.
I also kind of accidentally wrote a book. I'm in academia, and aside from really bad poetry and a failed NaNoWriMo project that will never see the light of day, I've not done a lot of writing other than like short things just for myself. But in 2016, it was 2016ing all over the place. I was a new mom and I had a big research project at work, and I just felt like I was losing myself. And so I sat down to write what I thought was going to be a short story. And then I just kept doing it because my kid was sleeping. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have a book. This might be really good. It wasn't. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll revise it. Maybe it's really good now. It wasn't. And then eventually it turned into How to Fail at Flirting. And so I say that was my debut novel, but it's also the first real novel I ever wrote. And so I have a lot to talk about what I learned along the way.
That's awesome, though. That was your first one, is the one that it went the distance. That's amazing.
That's really cool.
I fell into writing romance on accident. I started writing YA when I first started writing, and nothing will ever see the light of day. But the third book I wrote was this sci-fi romance, which they were chemically bonded, so they had to have sex. And I was like, oh, I think I might be writing a romance. And from there, it's more or less history. That's just kind of what I gravitated towards. Because similarly, there was never enough. There was never enough the good stuff, the sexy, good, romantic, intimate stuff in the books or the stories I was watching. So I was like, I need more. So that's what I wrote.
Okay, so we have Kenya made it back in after her technical, and Tessa's with us. So if you guys want to just talk about, introduce yourselves and say something about your latest book or any book you choose, and then we're just talking about how everybody got into writing romance.
Kenya, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, this works. This is Reference Light. Hi, I'm Kenya Goree-Bell. I write historical as Goree-Bell. And under my real name, I write contemporary about smart, sexy, cool people. And because Kenya got jealous of Karis, okay, because my ego is amazing. And so I have books written by another person, of course not. So I got into romance really early, started writing in high school, didn't know anything about sex, so the boys would tell me if it was right or wrong, and I would pass it out in the classroom, and they would help me with my math. And then I had started reading romance when I was 12, Joanna Lindsay, and have always been a writer, poet, playwright, all of that. And then graduated college, started teaching, hated that, started writing at work with the kids, and wrote my first book, put it on the shelf after I had my kid, and then picked it back up and published it, self-published it, and been going ever since. So that's the story, y'all. So boring.
No.
Hey everyone, I'm Tessa Bailey. I apologize for my lateness. Never agreed to help someone move, especially in the rain. Even if it's your mother, don't do it. But I did learn today, and this is kind of appropriate to what we're talking about. My mother is moving from like a large apartment to a small one, so she's had to get rid of a lot of items. And one of those items was the books that I gave her that I've written.
Oh no!
She handed them back to me in a bag today and said, I can't fit these in my new place. Please take them back. And I was like, okay. So now I'm just thinking I started writing romance to spite my mother, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. But yeah, I'm like, what am I going to do? Go online and ask if anybody's named Mom that wants these? Like, they're just forever ruined. Yeah, no, I started writing romance when I was probably in my early 20s, and I wrote 2 books before one was actually or maybe I think the third one I wrote was published. It was called Protecting What's His, and I don't think I think the last 8 or 9 years has been an absolute blur. Just constantly writing. There's no calm period. You guys can all relate to that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then It Happened One Summer is my most recent book.
It's perfect because Xio's wearing her Moira wig.
There you go.
And Tessa's book is kind of like an ode to Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got the reference. I was like, oh yeah. Yeah.
I was just gonna nod
Moira.
until I understood.
Some of I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't pick up on references if they're pertinent to my own books.
You just moved. Look, your mom
I was
gave
paying
you all your books back, so we understand.
But there's that scene where they're all like hanging on just the fact that they all hang on the walls. I think that in itself is probably one of the best parts of the show. Just the fact that she hangs her legs up. Yeah.
And they all have names. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was appropriate to name my first wig Moira.
Moira
There's so
Rose.
much about that show. It's like, if I were going to splurge on an auction item, it would be to get to hang out with Dan Levy for like an hour just to pick his brain. That show is such genius. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so happy. It's just such a happy, like you can count on it. It's such a reliable, good show. That's what everybody needed. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the settings. So some of you have settings that are either your town or close to you, but how do you choose for your books the settings? I know Robin has one set here in Las Vegas, so that's appropriate. Started in Las Vegas, not totally set here, and Katee's got some fantasy world. She's got some real life places. So how did you choose the settings for your book, or what's your most memorable setting that you've chosen and why?
I choose the settings because I am garbage at geography, and it's better if I just make it up, because if I do like a real city, people will be like, excuse me, that's not how any of that works in my city. And they'll be right because I suck. So it's easier for me just to make up a different city. Like even in my contemporary books, they're like alt world, and that it's not a real city, because then I can just draw myself a sketchy little map and like more or less keep things consistent, and nobody can tell me I'm wrong. So
It's true. I've made mistakes when I've set them in real places. So I feel you on that, Katee. I think my favorite setting, it was the first book series I wrote. And I'm looking at Katee and Tessa. We both I remember us all being like babies that entangled together, like way ago. Like I think we all. But was the Boys Are Back in Town series, and it's actually set in this small Virginia town, which is a mishmash of my actual hometown in Virginia and my adopted hometown in Virginia. And so it had, all these locations and buildings and things, and there's a diner. And it's funny because I realized how many of my hometown friends and their moms and stuff were reading my books, because they're all like, was that the school-filled lunch, which was the diner? And I'm like, oh my God, you guys are the only people who would know that. So yeah, and it was kind of cool to have people recognize it. So I like to pull things that are real and put them into like fake places, kind of like with Katee. Then I don't have to worry about anybody calling me out and saying, you don't make a right there, you make a left there, or whatever.
There are no alleys in New York. Like
Trains in Vegas. I've seen trains in Vegas, and I'm like, we don't have trains here, and no, you could not walk half a block and be downtown from the strip. So.
I live in the middle of Iowa, and so I wanted people to be interested in my setting. So books are in Chicago, but my third book I put in North Carolina, and I worked in a family home that was like really special and meaningful to our family, except then I wrote a sex scene that took place in the backyard, and so now I'm like, I don't know if I can keep that or if my mom might like end me if I publish this book without having sex under the tree swing at somebody's house. But it was very cool to like write that space and like think about like that kind of land and what it means to our family. But yeah, it's a good sex scene.
I think most of my books are set in Philly.
Life, right?
Most of my books are set in Philadelphia because there are not a lot of books or films or any set in Philly. So I like showing off my town. But I do get called out a lot when I set books in Philly because I make stupid mistakes like getting the direction wrong of a street that goes north and south and saying east or west. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I grew up here, so I should know better. Or like saying there's a 70-story building in an area where there isn't any 70-story building. I'll get that kind of stuff. But I'm like, it's fictional. I can put a 70-story building there if I want to. Okay. But yeah, but I think my favorite setting was the book that I wrote on my blog set on a fictional television show in Hollywood. So it was like the behind the scenes drama of the fictional television show and I'm going back to that universe soon. So that was like the most fun I think I've had writing because it was so high drama.
Oh, okay. Well, for my historicals, I do a lot of research for settings because it's important, and I feel like settings are another character in the story. And then for my contemporaries, I always bring them back to visit their family in Birmingham, Alabama, because that's where I'm from. And so it's always something about big, crazy family shenanigans and some type of landmark in my city that I have them visit. So I do a lot of research about stuff I've forgotten about or take for granted. And so, but it's always something. The contemporaries will somehow find themselves back in Birmingham somewhere, visiting, running away from the man. Normally they run away from the guy, come home, and then he comes back in his jet because he's a billionaire. He comes back in his jet and then goes to College Hills, which is like my family's neighborhood. And he go get the girl out of her parents' backyard or whatever, and like some crazy shit, whatever.
Totally works.
So I wrote, I think the first many of my books were all in New York City or Chicago, one or the other, because it's just like the landscape I'm comfortable with. I know, I know what it looks like. I know what the neighborhoods are and things like that. But I have written some small town ones, and I always get called out. Denise, you're from Iowa. I wrote a book that was set in Iowa, and so like it was one of the Romancing the Clarksons books, and so somebody emailed me and they were like, I live in Iowa and we do not have mountains here. She was like, and I like literally had like 5 chapters set on the top of a mountain. I was like, I mehave if I can basically create a side table anywhere I want for them to bone on, I can create a mountain in the middle of Iowa. I have just unlimited power as a romance author.
What's your 70-story?
Yeah, 70-story buildings, wherever I feel like it. And then with this most recent one, it happened one summer. So it's really difficult to get a small fishing village on the other side of the country 100% correct, right? It was mostly like, it was just Google Maps and pictures and like websites and things. But I had this woman who owns this winery in Westport that was featured in the book. She got in touch with me, and then she wanted me to come and do a book signing there. And I was like, yes, I'm doing that. Absolutely. 100%. And then she started reading the book and emailing me and telling me everything I got wrong. And I was like, do you want me to come
like, never mind.
book signing or not?
Well, and that's, because you wrote, I remember you said that the tourism board wanted you to come out and do a signing too, so it can't have been that bad.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that bad. It was like little things, but she was just like, I think she was just like telling me because she thought I would want to know, you know? And I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. No, she was really, really nice though. You know, like I can't wait to meet her in person. She's like one of the original female sea captains that like now owns a winery. It's like, I was like, I'm going to sit down and write your whole life story.
Wow.
Yeah, she's cool.
So I want to touch on something. I had a YA panel this morning for the book festival that I didn't moderate, but I'd put together. So I was sitting in, and they were talking about YA writing, whether it's for adults or teens. And so then a couple of the authors said that they were happy because now as adults, it's the first time they can see their stories in a book. They didn't have those stories when they were younger. So now I know many of you incorporate parts of your life and parts of things. So what does that mean to you that you can get a book published, many of you by big publishers that actually has your story in it or your culture?
I can go first. You know me, I can talk. So, for me, it means I mean, I hate to say it's like a dream, like a lifetime dream come true, but it really is a lifetime dream come true. I mean, I'm going to date myself here, right? I'm not as old as Cher, but Cher was the only idol I had during when I was growing up. She was the person I watched on TV, that I felt like I could identify with. And we're not even of the same ethnic background, but there were so few women of color that it just means everything to me that somebody can pick up one of my books and see someone who has darker skin or curly hair or grew up, a biracial kid in the South, and that they can see that and experience. I mean, it's been a gift. I mean, it really has, because it kind of feels like, that past Robin would be really, really excited to go and to be able to see those books. And so, I'm glad that for my kids that they have that, I shout out to the YA authors. I love the fact that my kids can go into a Barnes & Noble or, an Amazon store or whatever, and they can pick up a book and actually find somebody on the pages, even if they're not even, the main character, but they can find someone who's significant in that book that looks like them and has the same experiences. And they don't have to do that, I'm going to insert my face on top of Farrah Fawcett, right? So there's somebody on the Charlie's Angels who looks like me.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm real. It's actually quite an honor, and it's a privilege to be able to do it. And my only thing is that I hope we have more.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot more. I feel like the Girl with Stars in Her Eyes is part of a series about an all-female rock band, and that in and of itself is a bit unusual from the rock romances that I've read. It's mostly the guys or the musicians and the girl group or the agent or the whatever. So I wanted to tell the story of women who rock, but it's also a super diverse group of women. They're every ethnicity, every sexual orientation, every neuro, and so it's like, here I get to tell a story about this found family of people who have been pushed to the margins. And I think the most amazing thing for me, I'm trying not to get all choked up here, but I get like tagged in reels and posts on Instagram from readers who go, oh my gosh, the first time I've seen a Black woman rock guitarist in a book that, that was like in front of me and she's on the cover. And I was like, yes, like this is what I want, and like Robin said, we need more. I don't want to be the only one, we need more of. Everyone deserves to see themselves with a happy ending. Everyone deserves to see them be the hero of their own story. And so I think the more we have, the better off we are as a society.
Yes. Yeah, I build on that. It's so, I don't know if it was ever it was not a lifelong dream of mine to write those stories. Clearly I talked about that already. I felt like butt first into writing, but like being able to write my own story was very powerful, but then getting the messages that like seeing a happily ever after for someone who's had this experience, identity too, but there's some heavier content in my book. I've got survivors and folks who've lived with addiction, like different things. And like folks saying, I got to see myself in a real way in your book, and that impacted me in X, Y, and Z way. Like I print those out, I stick them in a file.
Yeah.
And that idea of, I don't know if it's legacy, but of being able to impact somebody's life in that way isn't something I thought about when I sat down to write a book. It wasn't something I thought about when I realized I would have this career as an author, but it's so incredible. And it's so tied to what I do every day, like in education, that it's this thing that just kind of fills your cup. And so much of that is, again, this representation. It's knowing that people are seeing themselves in a story and seeing themselves in a happily ever after that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have something, Kenya?
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, I'm very excited about what I'm writing now because in the terms of diversity, I'm writing a heroine who's neurodiverse, and two of my sons, well, I only have two sons, but both of them are on the spectrum. And I am excited to see so many books coming out now by Helen Wong and Talia. And as a reader, as well as a writer with characters who are neurodiverse, and I'm very excited and proud of the project that I'm writing now because in it, she's fabulous and she loves her life. And the story is she just so happens to be autistic. It's not about her autism being a traumatic experience or anything like that. And I really feel like in a lot of instances with inclusion, the indie community has led the way, and I'm just very proud to be part of that community and being one of those authors who are making romance available for everyone. And that's one of the reasons I created the KGB, so everybody can see themselves and be included and see authors who are leading the way. And I just love our community for doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, the face of romance has changed completely. I mean, back from when I was a teen or anyone was in their 20s, even like 5-10 years ago. I mean, we've got the heroines, we've got women who are plus sized, who are getting there happily ever after. Tessa's writing these lovely men who are, have the dad bods and the beards and aren't necessarily, the ripped abs and stuff. I mean, it's the face of romance has changed, and it's changing for the better. We've just got to keep supporting that and celebrating that, I think.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, on to writing your book. So how do you handle, it's a thin line between love and hate for some of these characters and some of these books. How do you write someone who may not be a fan favorite, but they're going to be a great hero or heroine in the end? And how do you not cross that line? Or I'm just going to bring up an example because Katee wrote this character named Dimitri, and in the first books in her series, I hated him, and I wrote to Katee and I talked to her in person, and I said, I need a character to kill him. I need you to have one of your characters kill him off. He needs to die. And then she wrote him his book, and I was like, I'm only reading this because it's you, Katee. And then he became one of my favorite characters of hers ever. So how do you guys do that as authors, even if it's in the same book, turn someone who may seem like they're the bad guy, but then they're not? And how do you, without crossing the line too far, make people fall in love with them?
Sometimes they are the bad guy, though. That's okay. We like that sometimes. I think the important thing is a lot of what brings people around to characters who would not necessarily be like sympathetic, whether it's an unlikable heroine or a hero who, does murder. It's honestly the romantic relationship, because you start to see them through the lens of their love interest, and that shifts the reader's view, whether they want it or not. Like, I personally find a lot of pure joy and maybe a little bit of spite in like bringing people around to characters that they didn't think they'd like, or romances that they didn't think they'd like. And it's like, no, give me a series. Let me slow roll you into this, and you will be begging me for this book by the end of it. And it's a fun challenge as an author to kind of seed that in a way that people will like and have readers trust you enough to try, because like you said, you told me you wanted to kill Dimitri with fire, and then he ended up being somebody that you really enjoyed, so it's very vindicating.
I think giving any antagonist like some humanity, if it's somebody that does horrible things, if you give them that little iota of humanity that somebody can latch onto, and just like Katee said, slow build that redemption arc through a series or through a book. Yeah, that's like, it's really satisfying, especially when you get that hate mail, like, oh my gosh, I hate this character or whatever it is, and you're like, for now,
just wait.
Just you wait.
Well, like I always remember from back in my college days, I took a psych class because I needed a elective. Anyway, so I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a lawyer by day, so we, those two things do not mesh very often. But I remember in that I had a professor who once told me, it stuck with me. He said that the opposite of love is not hate. The real opposite of love is indifference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that someone who cared, like who has the opposite of love is that. So when I have readers who call me and say, I hate that person, that's not indifference. It's not like they're like, Xio, I don't care if you ever write that person again.
Yeah.
The opposite of that is that they're going to love them. There's something about them that tweaks them so hard that they're like, I've got to, so that's when you got them, right? Because it's like, because otherwise they would be like, oh, I don't care. What was the name of that guy?
What was the name of that character? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are you writing a book about them? We don't care. Yeah.
I think too about the unlikable heroine and how so often that person is unlikable because of patriarchy, misogyny, and so that idea of like putting them in their own story and recentering this person who we have this negative thoughts about, and kind of challenging readers to think about like why they had that negative thought about that person, or showing how they've grown, or something like that. Like I kind of love to do that in my books, and you see like the villains or the unlikable people kind of show up later in different contexts, but at least for unlikable heroines, that's so often rooted in some of those things.
I've seen author friends say that like they have a guy who's slept around in every book. If they have a heroine that's not a virgin, then people had a lot of backlash for that. And that's another thing that's changing too. I mean, it's real life. If you're going to write a real life story, if they're in their 20s, they may, more than likely have had a few relationships in their lives.
Yeah, I say normalize not listing the heroine's body count. Like, I'm over that. Oh, she only slept with 3 guys in her whole life. Like, whatever.
Right.
And
we don't need the virgin adjacent. It's okay. Let her,
Either she's a virgin or we don't talk about it because it ain't nobody business. How about that? And I love a virgin heroine. I love that. But what Denise was saying, all of my heroines end up being the person who does the bad thing in the story, because that's me. I'm always the one in trouble in the marriage. So that's how they always do some crazy stuff. And then the hero is like, why did you do that? Why did you, because it'd be like my husband. Because he's mad at me right now. So, but he ain't speaking to me. He just sitting at the table, just like, I don't exist, whatever. Anyway, so I handle that after the panel. But that's what happens in real life. So I just put that. My books are just me, my id all over the page. So.
I'm the same way. I'm like, I think I have a really hard time writing an unlikable character because I want so desperately for people to like me in real life. I think. And it probably all stems from that. But I recently started writing a book where the heroine was really misunderstood. I won't call her unlikable, but maybe just really misunderstood for the first 20,000 words, and I couldn't keep going with it. I think I've had 2 heroes that were kind of quote unquote the villains in the preceding books as the secondary characters, Renner from Wound Tight, I think, and Aaron from the Clarkson series, where people just didn't like them going into it. And I did find it really satisfying to change people's minds though, because everybody's got some sort of vulnerability or pain, or and then the reader has it too. So that's how you like kind of, that's the conduit into them relating to the character. But I wish I could do it more. I wish I could just not care.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody has to like my girl. Everybody.
It's hard to write someone who's like, the people like, the antagonist in The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes is Candy, who I made her she's horrible. She does horrible things. She's a horrible person. And I can't tell you how many people have asked me when her book is coming. I'm like, I didn't, she's not on the plan. But, I made her too human or something, which is good. I'll take that. But yeah, she's a hot mess. But they love her anyway.
There's some characters that I think it's, like you were saying, indifference, but even indifference to a point, or hate so much. I mean, I didn't want a Dimitri book. I wasn't clamoring for that. And there's sometimes series I read that I'm like, I don't ever want to know this person's story. Like Monica Murphy has her like teen series where and there's the one cheerleader girl who was just horrible. And like, we're all like, please don't ever write her story.
Yeah, but the thing with that though is that like, I want those stories all the more though, because I'm like, how? Like, give me inside. Like, Kate C. Wells, I fangirl her so hard, has this MC series, and the club president's sister is terrible. She is terrible. She's ruthless. She's nasty. She is so mean. And I want her book so bad because I'm like, I know I don't want her to be soft. I don't want her to soften her at all, but I trust her to be able to tell that story without to make that character sympathetic without softening them or like walking back on the things she's done. And I hope so. I'm gonna be writing her like emails like, please just write this book. Like, cause I love that. I love that like the bitchy or like the mean or the villainous character. I'm like, no, I want to know more about them. Tell me more. Cause it just means they're written compelling enough that I'm like, yes, get me inside their head. I would need it.
Well, that's like Mean Girls. My favorite character in Mean Girls is Regina George.
Yep.
I'm here for her every day. And and she's terrible. I mean, it's like, and I'm kind of disappointed that I can't be in the gym and put my hand up too and say, I've been terrorized by Regina George.
I actually just want an anthology of people writing the
villain
character from their book.
Oh, let's do it.
And it's a whole
get Katee started.
Let's make it happen.
Listen, all my villains get full-length stories in the book. Like if you hate them and you're like, oh, that person is scary and we don't like them, I'm like,
you like have authors that you trust, like you said you love that author and like I loved you, and so I was willing to take a chance even though so I hate villains like in everything. Like, I mean, Star Wars, everywhere, I hate the villain. I am totally the hero. But somebody wrote a villain series, and then I had to read the villain series because they wrote it. Not naming any names.
Somebody needs to write a Darth Vader love story. Give Darth Vader
I just wrote, I definitely don't like Kylo Ren, and I don't like the Renlo thing, but I just read The Love Hypothesis by, I think it's Ali Hazelwood, realizing it was a Renlo fan fiction, and it was
everybody's
amazing.
Talking about that book. I am very excited.
Yeah.
It's not my ship, but I want to read it all the same.
It's not my ship at all, and I thought it was amazing, and I wrote to her, and I'm like, I don't even like Renlo, but this was amazing. So, or Ren, however it is, but yeah, so it's just you gotta trust it, or you just gotta take a chance. Like if I didn't realize it was that fan fiction until after I'd started reading it, and then I was like, okay, I'm already reading this, and I like it, so you can get sucked in. Now, let's talk about tropes. What do you have a favorite trope to read and or write?
Grumpy Sunshine for me. I just pop in because that's like absolute hands down opposites attract. Grumpy Sunshine is my catnip. So I'll read that all day, every day.
I just want like a good enemies to lovers, like knife to the throat. Like, yeah, like enemies to lovers in all its variations is my favorite thing. But if it's like a true enemies to lovers where there's some kidnapping involved, like that, like if we go like the ones that go really hard on enemies to lovers are my absolute favorites.
Yeah,
I don't need kidnapping, but I'll take enemies to lovers any day.
You got to drag you over to the dark side, Denise. You got to come up to the dark side with me and Katee.
We got cookies.
I just like Grumpy Sunshine, and I just wrote my first one that'll be a novella out next summer, and that was a lot more fun than I thought it would be.
I like
Grumpy Sunshine is fun.
I love a second chance romance. I love writing them. I love reading them. That is like my crack. Like if I see, all you got to do is put. If you want me to buy your book, folks, just put it on whatever social media, second chance romance, and Robin will be one clicking, because I just think I love that when they come together and they have all that baggage.
Oh,
and it's like real baggage. It's not like my girlfriend told me that you're not nice. No, like I know that you're a jerk. I know you're a jerk.
You
right?
hurt me terribly, and I have scars on my soul because of you. But we're gonna fall in love again, anyways. I love also.
I love that so much. That is my catnip. Every single
Second chance plus enemies to lovers is my favorite. I like combining those two because they so much angst.
Yeah.
That's
I seem to like be gravitating towards like friends to lovers lately. I think because I want to write something that's so opposite from what I write that like I just want a slow burn. You know, like when I sit down to read a book, I've been wanting to pick up a slow burn because I can just kind of like not compare it to any, you know, like not, I don't know, compare it to what I'm doing in that moment, you know, like writing wise. But writing wise lately, I seem to just really like be fixated on writing unrequited love stories. I don't know why, but like to me, that's so like that feeling in your chest that you get, you know, in those dramatic scenes in romance, like unrequited love is such a recipe for that. You know, like the girl loving the guy and he doesn't know it or he doesn't notice her. Yeah, like that really, I'm going to write one. I'm going to write one, it probably won't be out for 100 years, but where the girl's writing love letters to the guy, secret admirer letters. Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's gonna find him, right?
100 years.
I love it.
She's gonna. They grew up in the same town, and then he comes back on sabbatical. He's a professor. He comes back on sabbatical to write his first novel, and she's his gardener. So yeah.
100 years though? You can't tease that and say 100 years.
Okay, Abby, just put me down for your alpha or beta reader, and I'll just read it. As you write a page, just send it to me, and I'll read it, and I'll be like,
Chapter
more
at a time.
Because Naima, her scoring off the field, and the girl was pining for him. I was like, it was just in my heart. So I just love that. So.
That pining. Oh, it's so great. It's just like. Oh. That's what I want.
The friends to lovers where they've been friends for like 20 years or 10 years or whatever, and one is pining for the other. Catnip.
Okay, but I'm writing that right now, and it's hard because I'm like, y'all could have had sex like on page 2. You could have all did it. Friends with benefits, people, and it's just like, but people are saying they have to wait. So I'm just like, they could have had sex like 5 times by now.
A good friends to lovers though that balances that in a way that's really believable is. That's why it's not my favorite, but Talia Hibbert writes the hell out of that trope. I'm like, I don't even like this trope that much, but I want to consume it whole from you.
Yeah.
Well, Denise did a great job with the upcoming book because I've already read the arc. And Tessa, your upcoming book that I've read the arc of is Friends to Lovers. And Robin has some great, you know, let's just get married in Vegas because we're friends and we both need to.
Yep.
Well, this will be the last one.
We're like the bone behind everybody's back, and we're just friends. Yes, because it's not serious. I love those.
I'm actually writing Enemies with Benefits right now.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
I wish I had friends with benefits instead of friends to lovers, because it took them. Now that they're having sex, it's fantastic, but it was like pure hell getting them there. Like I'm like. Just
what's that in a couple months is
stop looking at each other. Just do it.
My second book is a slow burn, which I love to read, but is hard to write. Mostly because when you're editing, you have to wait for them to do it over and over and over again.
I should post the bonus scenes from Girls because there's so many scenes I had to take out, which is why it's such a slow burn.
Yeah.
Well, my third book I overcorrected because it is Enemies with Benefits, and there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, that one's gonna be fun to write.
So speaking of that, so where do you write? Like, if you have a special writing place, do you have just wherever you can go now that I know a lot of people wrote at Starbucks before the pandemic, but do you have a place in your house, or you go outside, or you go off to a hotel, or in your closet?
Oh, is that aimed at me?
Your office is in your closet, so
Because I'm actually in my closet, as she knows. So this is where I write. It's my and I'm going to turn it around very slowly. But it is my writing area, and then my closet is over there. So I actually write at the end of my closet. This was a present from my husband. So I have a 22-foot long closet. It's 8 feet wide. And so
Wow.
the first 11 feet is my closet, and this part is my writing space. And this is where I come. And if I'm in here and the door's closed, unless the apocalypse is happening, and honestly, you know what? We need romance during the apocalypse, so leave me alone. So I'll finish the book first.
There's no foot traffic through there. That's what makes it perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when I shut the door, I really don't have great internet connectivity at all back here, so I can't goof off.
Even better.
Yeah.
Well, I write in bed. I'm in bed right now. I write in bed. I do my lives in bed. Everything is in bed, y'all. I do my best work in bed. I am. So this is a pretty big 4-poster bed that I had custom made, and I write here. And my husband is normally snoring over there, and he tells me I don't bother him. So at night, I write with my writing partner. Some of y'all might know her, Sierra Simone. But I write with her, and we write from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning every night.
Wow.
So that's
Wow.
Nice.
right in bed.
I have an office. I have to have my space like perfectly arranged, because if it gets like thrown off like it is right now, because I'm moving things around, my brain does not work well with change. So I need to have my things all arranged perfectly. So I finally have a door in my office. That was an addition during the pandemic, because I did not have a door before then, and now people just throw it open and come in anyways. But whatever, it's fine. It's fine. But yes, an office.
Yeah, writing during the pandemic was a challenge because Mr. X was working from home up until like a month ago. So my office, he took over my office because he has like 3 screens. It's like the Matrix in there. Got 3 screens, So I'm in the tiny little guest bedroom we have in the back of the house, and can only fit a twin bed. So like this is like my fake office for now. But now that everything is sort of going back, I have to move back. So I have to like acclimate to this room. Then I had to acclimate to that room again. But I can't do the coffee shop. I wish I could go to Panera or whatever and write, but I can't write in public. I can't do it.
I
don't know
talk to
how
strangers too often. I can't. I get distracted. Like I'll be like, "That's a really cute house," or "Oh, where did you get that pen?" And before I know it, I've wasted 3 hours talking with strangers I'm never going to see.
That
again.
would totally be me.
Oh,
Yeah,
Robin, people like you are why I can't go right in public. I have an office as well. It's a very small, but it is like my sanctuary. But I still I can't write if the house is awake, or if there's a lot of movement or things happening out there, because I have to be in control of it all. I'm like, what's he making in the kitchen? What's going on? What's the snack? So I wake up at 4 a.m. Since this pandemic started, that's the only solution for me is to go to bed after Jeopardy, like grandma, and wake up at 4 a.m. So I work from 4 to 8. And honestly, in just those 4 hours, I get more done than I ever have. I don't know if it's just because there's nothing in the world taking place. There is obviously, but the internet hasn't really started to terrorize you yet, and it's just kind of it's a quiet, it's the golden hours, and so that's been working for me. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it once my daughter goes back to school or not. Remains to be seen. But yeah.
So Denise, are you in your office?
I'm in my office now, which was my birthday present to myself 2 years ago, or from my husband, but it was to me. And I keep this arc of it clean so it can be used for Zoom. But then during the pandemic, I have a now 5-year-old who was a 4-year-old and 3-year-old during most of that. So most of it writing was done on the couch. It's like a permanent me indentation in the couch now. And then I got really good at using my lunch hour at work. So I used to work through lunch, or usually I'd work through lunch. So now I guess I'm still working through lunch, but it's writing. And so I have a little table so I can leave my desk and go to the other side, and I have I kind of a corner office, so it's got lots of windows, and I always write for about an hour, like at lunchtime during the work week, and those are usually pretty productive times because I can close my door, and my secretary won't let any calls through, and so that can be kind of just dedicated time to.
Yeah. When I used to work at the World Series of Poker in the summers, I did the cage, paying people out all their millions, and then I started doing the tax paperwork where we sat down and we had our little computer there, and so I would bring up my OneDrive sometimes and write in between customers, so it would get slow, and my coworkers would come by and they'd be like, "Oh, the font is really slow. That means you're writing one of those scenes." It gets little because you don't need to see what I'm writing right now, but yeah, so it was nice. I mean, but I know a lot of people who wrote in coffee shops. So most of you wrote at home anyway, so that's good. But yeah, I know a lot of people who were writing in coffee shops. Miss the coffee shops.
I definitely have spent quite a bit of this summer because my middle kid's in like football or was in condition. I don't know, something at the school. And so I would but it was just long enough that I couldn't come home in the middle of it. So I spent like an hour and a half every day writing in the school parking lot.
Oh, wow.
And it's upsetting how much more productive I was during that time when I could not access the internet because I have a blocker like in the area. Like, oh, so upsetting. I'm like, what do you mean I do better when I'm not on Twitter? What?
Well, I mean, because of the day job, I am the queen of writing in parking lots. I will go and hide. I've been known to vacate my building during lunchtime, and I'll go hide in somebody else's building. I'll call my friend and say, "Are you going out for lunch? I want your office." And I'll go over there so no one can find me. Because otherwise, I'm like you, Kenya. I put everybody to bed, and then I start writing. And because I can't get up early, Tessa, I just can't. You're a better person than I am.
Wait, there's 2 4 o'clocks in the day. What?
Well, I'm at 5 o'clock. My day's over. Like, I'm in pajamas. It's not, there are downsides. Trust, yeah, like, I'm very crabby. My family's outside, like,
So, I want to ask you all, for people who haven't read your books before, if there was one book that you could choose to have them read, I know, Denise, you just had your first book, but if there's one book that you could choose from any of your books that you would say for someone to start with, what would it be? Everybody's like, oh.
Well, you all think I'd say my only book is probably where I would encourage people to start, and then they could just go ahead and buy the second one while they're at it.
I think Neon Gods. I feel like that's like just bonkers enough that you get a taste for like the Katee Robert like experience, but it's not so bonkers that it'll traumatize you if you've never read me before. So I feel like that's a good place to start. That's my answer.
Yeah, I think it's in between your books. It's not, none of yours are like on the sweet end, but it's in between like the villains and the mafia. So.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that came out. You're just sweet. I'm just like, it never. Katee?
Yeah, are you over there ideating? Are you ideating on
No, I was saying that Katee and Sweet do not go together. I'm sorry.
So when people tell me that their first romance is like Desperate Measures, I'm like, no, run away. Don't do it. I'm so sorry.
Well, I mean, my first romance ever was Sky O'Malley by Bertree Small, and I kind of feel like Bertree Small of the 2020s. So that didn't scar me for life, at least as far as I can tell. You guys can let me know.
I think with me, you would start with this book. Wait a minute, where's the thing? I don't know where I'm at.
There you go. There you go.
I'm like the kids when they're like this close to the thing. Okay. Start with Rapid to the Light and go on from there.
Yeah, I guess you start with The Girl with Stars in Her Eyes, which is right here. Just knowing that I write most of my books with more heat than there is in this one. This is like an appetizer in terms of the spice. But it's a good representative of like how I write found family, which tends to show up in pretty much all my books. And start with that one.
I don't know. I've had all this time to think about it, but I would probably say it happened one summer. I don't. It seems to be like the one that it seems like a lot of people are reading me for the first time with this book, and are liking it and wanting to read more. So I guess that like that's a positive thing. So I guess if somebody else wanted to read it, they might want to keep going. This one, it happened one summer. It came out in July. And it's about a socialite. It's Grumpy Sunshine. It's a socialite who gets banished to a fishing town and falls for a fisherman, a grumpy fisherman.
Nice.
Yeah.
Also, it's spicy.
It's really spicy. Yeah, the cover is. Sorry.
Don't let these cute covers fool you. They like most of you have cute covers. I mean, don't let the cute covers fool you. There's some spice in these books.
Yeah.
They have a new Twitter thing called Does It Bang? And they were like, Does it bang? Yes. And I think they had Tessa's book and my book, and they were like, yes, they bang. Oh, boy, do they bang.
I love the illustrated covers. I mean, I like the couples too, but I like the illustrated. But I mean, and I never go into them thinking they're going to be sweet just because it's a cover, but I could see how people could come across and think they're going to be sweet.
I know better, and I still assume.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what my brain just latches onto covers, and I'm like, oh, rom-com, and it's like 90% of them are not rom-coms.
No way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's funny stuff.
That makes me kind of sad because I know that I have a series coming out in the fall, and it's all illustrated covers. And I did it because I wanted to find covers with biracial Native American men on them with their partners. And guess what? This is how much is out there, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, so I reached out to my buddy CM Donovan. And I was like, make them for me, and they did. So. They're very spicy, but that was my solution. I don't have, I didn't want to go out and have to pay ever how much money for a photo shoot. And besides, CM was an amazing artist, and I wanted to go into business.
It's okay if you know you're spicy.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say we know, Robin.
But I think a lot of people they do assume. So, but for me, starting, I would say you could do Take Me On the Billionaire if you want male, female. Ooh, I'm doing the Kenny thing there. So I just want to be you, so I'm just doing it. So there we go. So you want male?
No, I want to be you.
And then if you're looking for some queer romance, I do have, and both of these are also native based. So if you want, this is the Unforgettable Duet, and it includes Ghost and now, of course, and Sacred Son, which both have Native American heroes in it.
See, Robin just reminded me that I write queer romance. So if you want queer romance.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah, I do. If you want to read queer romance, I would say start with When Frankie Meets Johnny, which I don't have a copy with me, but
love that one.
Thank you.
All right, so one last question before I let all you lovely ladies go. What book would you recommend that you've just read or that you're planning on reading? Go ahead, Xio, with a hand.
Sierra Simone has a book coming out, or by the time this airs, it just came out, called Saint. Run, do not walk.
I'm so excited for that book.
So good.
That book wrecked me in the best way.
Did you cry? I cried.
I cried. I had to put the book down, and I read it in like 2 days, but I still had to put it down and walk away from it. Like, oh my gosh.
It's been all over my social media. Everybody's loved it.
The audio is going to break me in half. I just know, but I'm going to listen to it anyway. But yeah,
it's so good.
It's so good.
I just read A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. It's dark academia. The heroine's a lesbian. It is like when you read a lot, you kind of you can tell the twists and turns. You're like, oh, I can guess the ending, which is not a bad thing, but it's just like, you get familiar with like the beats. I was like, is this a ghost story? Is this a mystery? Like, I don't know what the form, like what, and like the twists were so well executed and the craft was so superb that as soon as I finished it, I wanted to go back and start reading it again because she laid out the work to pull off the ending in such a way that I'm like, oh, I want to go see all that foreshadowing again because I picked up on it, but it was layered in so, it's just masterful, absolutely masterful. Highly recommend. I think it's YA. They're in high school, but it's like it feels like the writing feels upper YA. The heroine is 18, I think. but highly recommend.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I read A Lot Like Adios by Alexis Daria, and that comes out on, I think it comes out Tuesday or next Tuesday. It comes out either in the next one of these Tuesdays, or the next one. But it's fantastic. It's a second chance. It's kind of a second chance romance, but it's between like two best friends from high school who like had this really amazing kiss and then like immediately just got pulled apart on different coasts of the country, and now they're like back together in New York and working together. It's so hot, like off the charts hot. She writes amazing books, and I think there was one other one that I wanted to say, and now I've forgotten what it is. Somebody else go, and I'll try and think of it.
Okay, I'll go. I have to say, Her Soul to Take, which I was telling Katie about, by Harley LaRue, is dark horror romance, and the guy's a demon, and the girl is kind of like this. She's one of these bloggers that looks at haunted houses. It is so good. It is from page one, you will be invested. It will sweep you away into another dimension of reading. Clutch your throat, kind of post-pounding type of reading. And everybody please read it so we can talk about it. And then I'm currently reading, My Kind of Earl by Stacy Reed. It's historical. It's fantastic. And if you've ever read Stacy Reed, you know she just has these little swoony, lovely historical romances that just sweep you away. And I have to shout out Naima Simone's Return to Rose Bend, which is such a lovely, like one of the best books. Look, one of the best books of 2021. I have to say, I'm not just saying it because she's my friend. It is one of the best books of 2021, aside from Tessa's book, which is also one of the best books of 2021. I will, hands down, one of the best books you will ever read. Okay, I'm done.
I was just going to say, and Naima will be at the book festival in person and here on October 23rd in Vegas.
Cool. Oh, I have to
now that
shout
we've all
out.
gotten our official book recs out of the way, who's reading about like minotaurs being milked, like for real?
It is so good. It is so good.
Robin can go. Robin has
We're really thinking.
Sorry, that book's phenomenal. I love it.
It was very well written. I was surprised, but it was really awesome.
I fall asleep every time I pick it up.
Trending on Twitter, I know.
It's taken a while.
Robin didn't have a turn for her Rex.
All right, so I'm digging in. So I'm deep in. I've like back-to-back deadlines, so I don't tend to read. I like hoard all the new stuff until I'm done because I can't. I'll be like, oh, now I need to change this over into an enemies to lovers because I'm reading Xio's, but like, so I just can't do it. So I tend to pull from my favorites that I could like basically recite in my sleep. And the one I just finished, and this for me is. It's a trifecta book, which means I have it in paper, I have it in digital, and I have it in audio. And this one I love so much that I have it in both forms, editions of the paperback, both signed. It's Bad Boyfriend by K.A. Mitchell. And this book is kinky and sexy and funny and romantic, and it makes me cry. And there's a scene that when I met K.A. for the first time in person, I told her how much I love this book, and she was like, okay, thank you. Like, yeah, right, or whatever. And I quoted a scene from it to her word for word, and she was like, oh my God, you really do love this book. I'm like, I love this book so much. So this has been my comfort read, Bad Boyfriend. Whoops, I'm doing this again. K.A. Mitchell, this is the new cover. This is the OG cover that I'm not going to tell you guys how much I paid for. Online, get it, and yes, they're both signed, and no, you cannot have them.
All right then.
Yes,
Denise.
I've also been back to back on deadlines. I have it's not much for you all who are so like prolific with books, but I have 4 out nenext year, so that's a lot for me. So I've been doing a lot of audiobooks, and it's an audio originals, 2 of them by Bastone. But they're like sweet and low heat, which is not what I read ever. But they've been so refreshing. And it was Sweet Talk and Call Me Maybe. And they're kind of acted audiobooks. And I just loved both of those. I just fell into them, even though, again, it's not what I normally read or drive to. But it was just like a moment of like, oh, okay, the world's going to be all right.
Her
this badass girl with tattoos is meeting the nerdy lawyer, and I can be like happy and roll around in that. And it was a lot of nerd heroes, which are my kind of catnip.
Her Froling books have become auto buys for me, Denise, and I would have never in a million years thought that I would have loved them because they're sweet. I mean, there is sex on the page, but it's very, it's very, for what I like. I mean, I'm usually a Katee fan, so that'll tell you. So like, it's very like opposite, not the same. And I just, if I see it, I grab it, man. It's so good. She's so talented.
Yeah, it's just so delightful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read Katee, so like I had Katie's in between those two.
Oh God, Katie's an auto buy. You guys are all auto buys. But I have to give a shout out to Kawana Jackson, KM Jackson. She has a book coming out in November called How to Marry Keanu Reeves in 90 Days.
This
book is going to be huge, y'all. It's going to be huge. It's so good. It's going to be
It's a fun book.
I saw that tweet that originated it, or like that, like she had how it had come to. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for that book.
It's good. It's really good. I got it. I was so excited the day I got it. The arc from the publisher. I was like,
yeah.
It's fun. It's a fun book.
It is really fun.
Thank you all for being here. Before we end, if you want to all hold up your books again so everybody can see again your lovely books.
Okay, Robin, let's get it right.
All right, we're going to try. Oh, look at that. Nope, I'm doing it again. Here we go.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. We all appreciate it from the book festival. Hopefully we'll get you all here in person, which we're hoping this year, but we have some in-person panels. We'll have some next year. So I'm going to invite you all again next year. Hopefully things will be calmed down and you can come. Thank you. I love you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.